This is the story of a female writer whose life takes a sudden, dangerous turn. She's found alone and is kidnapped by some thugs who do something unspeakable to her. Following this, we see her courage, fear, and revenge unfold throughout the entire story. The story begins with Jennifer, a well-known novelist. This time, however, she has chosen a completely different environment to write her new book. A desolate and quiet area far from the city's hustle and bustle, where only the rustling of the jungle and the sounds of birds can be heard. First, she goes to a small local store where she meets Earl, a middle-aged man who owns the cabin where Jennifer is staying. Earl gives her the key and, pointing the way on a map, says, "The nights here are very peaceful, but be careful. Strange people also come and go in the woods." Jennifer gives a slight smile and gets into her car to drive on. A little later, she stops to get gas. There, two men, Andy and Stanley, are standing and staring at her without blinking. Their gazes make her uncomfortable. Just then, Johnny, the pump worker, arrives and asks with a laugh, "Are you new here? Where are you staying?" Jennifer tells him she'll be staying at a nearby cabin. When she gives Johnny the money, her foot accidentally hits a bucket full of water, and the water spills directly onto Johnny's pants. His friends burst into laughter. Jennifer apologizes in embarrassment and leaves. When she arrives at the cabin, she feels that the place is truly very quiet, perhaps too quiet. The cabin is surrounded by a dense forest, and the inside has the scent of old wood. She sets up her laptop and begins to write. However, late at night, while talking to her friend on the phone, she hears a faint noise from inside, as if someone is slowly opening a door. She cautiously goes there and sees that one of the rooms is half open. She peeks inside and sees a small box with a dangerous symbol on it, next to some old tools. It's a poisonous powder. She quickly closes the door. A little later, she accidentally spills a glass of beer while writing. She goes to do laundry and then notices the window. Outside in the dark, a shadow is standing and watching her. The next morning, while jogging, she goes deeper into the forest and sees a dilapidated old house. The door is open, but no one is inside. The atmosphere there makes her uneasy, so she returns. Upon reaching the cabin, she turns on the tap, but no water comes out. She calls for help, and a little while later, Matthew, a simple, shy man, arrives. He fixes the pipe, so Jennifer, happy, kisses him on the cheek. Matthew's face turns red, and he quickly leaves. In the evening, Matthew goes fishing with Stanley, Andy, and Johnny. There, he jokingly says that the city girl kissed him on the cheek. Hearing this, Johnny's face becomes serious. Stanley takes out his camera and shows a video of Jennifer that he had made through the window. A dangerous glint appears in Johnny's eyes. He laughs and says, "Tonight, I'll teach her a lesson." At night, there's a faint knock on Jennifer's door. She opens it and finds a dead bird lying there. She gets scared and quickly goes back inside. But then she sees her laptop, where the pictures of those men are open. Just then, the door opens and the three of them come in. Jennifer, trembling with fear, says that her boyfriend is about to arrive, but Johnny laughs and says, "I know you don't have a boyfriend." He offers her a bottle of alcohol and says, "Drink it, or it won't be good." Jennifer is forced to drink, but they still don't leave. Johnny puts a baseball bat in her mouth, takes out a gun, and humiliates her. Matthew turns away. Andy starts forcing the bottle into her mouth. Just then, Jennifer shoves him hard, takes a spray from her bag, and sprays it in Stanley's eyes. Seizing the opportunity, she runs away. Jennifer, barefoot, was running and panting through the middle of the jungle. Her clothes were torn, her hair was disheveled, and her face was a mixture of sweat and dirt. The cold morning air stung her wounds, but she didn't stop. She was breathing so fast that with every step she felt she would fall. After a while, she saw two men through the trees. One was Earl, who had given her the cabin key on the first day, and the other was a burly, elderly man with a revolver holster on his waist. Jennifer, in a panicked voice, almost fell as she reached them and said, panting, "Please, please help me." Her voice was trembling, her words were breaking, and tears were streaming from her eyes. The other man, who introduced himself as the sheriff, said in a deep voice, "Calm down, miss. I'm the sheriff here. As long as I'm here, no one can even touch you." Earl nodded in agreement and said, "Don't worry. We'll take you to a safe place." The sheriff ordered Earl, You go to the other side of the forest and look around. I'll take her to her cabin. Maybe we can find something there?" Upon reaching the cabin, the sheriff opened the door and immediately looked around inside. Jennifer stood in a corner, trembling, still shaken by the memory of that terrible night. The sheriff saw the scattered papers, fallen glasses, and overturned chairs in the room, but no one was present. Then his eyes fell on a bottle of alcohol on the table. He picked up the bottle, smiled, and said, "Looks like you had a lot to drink. Miss, maybe the alcohol caused you to hallucinate," Jennifer said in a voice full of anger and humiliation. "No, I'm not lying. Those people tried to force themselves on me. I just barely managed to escape." A strange glint appeared in the sheriff's eyes. He began to approach Jennifer with slow steps. "I'll have to search you. You might have a weapon," he said, and grabbed her arms. Under the pretense of a search, his hands began to wander over Jennifer's body in a way that made it clear his intention was not to help. Jennifer tried to free herself, but just then, the door opened, and Johnny, Stanley, Andy, and Matthew came in. They all smiled at each other upon seeing Jennifer as if a prey had been caught again. Jennifer understood that the sheriff was also one of these monsters. The sheriff pushed Jennifer to the ground and said in a cold voice, "Now there's no way to escape, darling. Something very bad is going to happen to you tonight." Johnny looked at Matthew and said tauntingly, "Come on, let's make you a man today. Take your clothes off." Matthew was hesitant. His face was red with shame and fear. But under the pressure from the others, he slowly started to take off his clothes. Jennifer writhed in pain and humiliation. Her screams echoed throughout the cabin. But these screams were just lost in the cold air of the jungle outside. Meanwhile, the sheriff's phone rang. The name of his daughter, Angel, was flashing on the screen. He picked up the phone, and as soon as his daughter's innocent voice came, "Dad, come home early today. I have something to tell you." The sheriff tried to compose his face and said, "Yes, Princess. Daddy will come home early today." After hanging up, he was silent for a moment. Then he told the others, "Okay, that's enough. Get out of here." After they left, Jennifer somehow managed to get up. There were bruises all over her body, and she looked completely broken. She walked out of the cabin, shivering in the cold air, without any clothes. A little while later, just as she thought she had escaped, the 5 of them came back in front of her. "Where are you running, our dear guest?" Andy said sarcastically. This time, they threw her to the ground. Andy grabbed her head and began to submerge it in the water of a small pit nearby. Jennifer gasped for air. Her arms and legs flailed, but the monsters kept laughing. The sheriff also took off his clothes, and one by one, they all committed atrocities against her. Jennifer was screaming in pain, but now there was more anger than fear in her voice. When they were satisfied, they left her. She crawled forward and reached an old wooden bridge, but the sound of them coming from behind stopped her in her tracks. "Let's finish her off today," Johnny said. Jennifer looked into their eyes for a moment. Then, without thinking, she jumped into the water. The cold water felt like knives to her body, but she kept swimming downward. The 5 of them peered over the edge, but there was no sign of her on the water's surface. "Maybe she was swept away," Andy said, but the sheriff said in a firm voice, "Keep an eye out. If she survives, we'll all be in jail." They burned all of Jennifer's things, her clothes, bag, notes, and laptop, nearby until they were ashes. The smoke rose, and a smile of satisfaction was on their faces. That night, the sheriff returned home. His daughter Angel happily opened the door and said, "Dad, guess what? I've been selected for the honors program." The sheriff smiled and hugged her as if he were an ideal father. But in his eyes, the monstrosity of the afternoon was still visible. The next morning was misty. An eerie silence hung in the cold air of the forest. The sheriff slowly drove his car toward Earl's cabin. On the way, his eyes kept peeking between the trees, as if he could feel an unknown gaze. Earl was sitting on the porch outside, smoking a pipe. The sheriff got out of the car and silently came up to him, placing the cabin key on the table. Earl, furrowing his brows, asked, "That girl Jennifer, has she left?" The sheriff gave a strange, slight smile, but the lie was clearly visible in his eyes. "Yes, she left. She didn't like staying here." Earl just took a long puff, but suspicion had settled in his gaze. In the next scene, we see all the monsters, the sheriff, Johnny, Andy, Stanley, and Matthew scattered in different parts of the forest, as if they were chasing a wild animal. Their eyes restlessly darted here and there, but Jennifer was nowhere to be found. The rustling of leaves and the sound of crows in the distance made the atmosphere even more frightening. Matthew stood a little apart from the others, staring at the dry leaves on the ground. The same moments kept replaying in his mind. Jennifer's screams, the fear in her eyes, and his own guilt. His fingers were trembling. He bit his lip and lowered his gaze. Guilt was clear on his face. A few days later, Earl calls the sheriff. His voice was full of concern. "I got a call from Jennifer's sister. She's asking why Jennifer hasn't come home yet." "Sheriff, tell me the truth. You didn't do anything to her, did you?" The sheriff's voice was cold and flat. "No, Earl. Nothing like that happened. She just left." As soon as the call ended, sweat broke out on the sheriff's forehead, but he took a deep breath and tried to calm himself. The next morning, Stanley, panting, runs through the forest to reach Andy and Johnny. "My camera was stolen and it had everything recorded from Jennifer," he said. Johnny's face turned red with anger. He grabbed Stanley's collar and shoved him hard. "Who told you to record all that? If that footage falls into someone's hands, we're all finished." That night, Johnny was sitting at home, drinking beer. A cold wind was coming in through the window. Suddenly, there was a faint knock on the door. He got up and opened it. A dead bird was lying on the porch. He frowned, thinking it was a joke from Andy or Stanley. But then, a rustling in the bushes, a slight movement. Johnny came out with a flashlight. As the light hit the ground, he saw a slipper, the same slipper Jennifer had worn that night. His breathing quickened. He looked all around. Then his eyes fell on Matthew's rubber bands on the ground. "Matthew," he muttered. "This is all his doing." The next day, the sheriff reached home. His wife came out of the kitchen and gave him a small package. "Someone sent it for you," she said. The sheriff opened the package. Inside was an old VHS cassette. As he touched it, the color drained from his face. Without a word, he got in his car and drove straight to the boys. As soon as he arrived, he punched Stanley. "Why did you have to record it?" Johnny jumped in and said, "Someone was bothering me last night too, and this is all Matthew's work. He's guilty about Jennifer's death, so he's trying to scare us." The sheriff said, gritting his teeth in anger. "Find Matthew, now!" Meanwhile, the sheriff arrived at Earl's alone. His face was full of questions and suspicion. The sheriff approached him, and under the pretext of small talk, he slowly took out a pistol. Bang! Earl fell to the ground. On the other side, Matthew was sitting on the stairs of the porch outside Jennifer's house. The anxiety and guilt were clear on his face. Suddenly, he heard a low, cold voice. "Matthew!" He looked up, startled. Jennifer was sitting alive on the living room sofa as if she had been waiting for him. Matthew went to her, trembling. "I'm sorry, Jennifer. I didn't do it on purpose." Jennifer gestured for him to come closer. There was a strange calmness in her eyes, but a storm was hidden within. Suddenly, she put a rope around his neck and pulled it tight with all her might. Matthew gasped and slowly fell, unconscious. Meanwhile, Andy and Stanley, looking for Matthew, reached an old, dilapidated house. As soon as they entered, Andy saw a torn old mattress in a corner with strange stains on it. The air was filled with dampness and fear. At that moment, Jennifer suddenly stood in front of Stanley outside. Her clothes were torn, and there was a cold smile on her face. Stanley lunged to grab her, but his foot got caught in a hidden trap. He screamed, "Andy, help!" Andy ran outside, but before he could reach, Jennifer hit him hard on the head from behind. Andy fell to the ground. In the next moment, she also hit Stanley's head with an iron rod. Both of them fell unconscious right there. Then she tied Andy to a tub. Jennifer slowly pulled the wood from underneath Andy, causing him to lose his balance and fall into the hot, boiling water. His face and mouth were badly scalded by the intense heat, and his painful screams echoed. And over there, she tied Stanley to a tree. Then she put a fishing hook in his eyes. After that, she cut up a fish, pushed its meat into his eyes, and then left. A little while later, some hungry birds from the sky came down on Stanley. They started pecking the flesh around his eyes, and in a few moments, they plucked out his eyes. He died in agony. In this way, Jennifer took another dangerous step and erased 2 names from her list of enemies. After this, she went straight to the gas station where she took the opportunity to attack Johnny and knocked him unconscious, taking him with her. When Johnny regained consciousness, he found himself naked and securely bound. Seeing Jennifer standing in front of him, his face showed both fear and surprise. Jennifer said in a cold tone, "Do you know what I'm going to do to you?" Saying this, she mercilessly pulled out his teeth one by one. Johnny started cursing at her in pain. Jennifer looked into his eyes and said, "You are so proud of your manhood, aren't you? Now you'll see that after today, you'll have nothing left to be proud of." After this, she picked up a pair of scissors and brutally cut off that part of him, stuffing it into his mouth. Johnny's painful screams slowly fell silent, and he died right there. Meanwhile, the sheriff was on duty when his wife called. She told him that their daughter Angel's teacher had come to meet him. Angel said on the phone, "My teacher is very nice, Dad. She's taking me to the playground." The sheriff immediately said, "Let me talk to your teacher." Then a woman's voice came on the phone. It was none other than Jennifer. By saying her name, she silenced the sheriff. The sheriff, panicked, pleaded, "Don't hurt my daughter." But Jennifer hung up and took Angel with her. The sheriff quickly got home and, after asking his wife for the address of the playground, ran there. But the playground was empty. He was about to get into his car when Jennifer attacked him from behind and knocked him unconscious. When the sheriff's eyes opened, he found himself securely bound. Jennifer had a shotgun inserted into his backside. Writhing in pain, he said, "Let me go. Please don't kill me." Jennifer taunted him in response. "This is what I felt when all of you attacked me like animals." The sheriff, panicked, asked, "Where is my daughter?" Jennifer smiled and said, "Your daughter is young and beautiful. How would you feel if someone did to her what you did?" The sheriff said angrily, "I would kill them." Jennifer said in a cold voice, "That's exactly the punishment I've come to give you." She took a rope, put it around the shotgun's trigger, and tied the other end to Matthew's hand, who was lying unconscious in front of him. "When he regains consciousness, both of you will be finished." Saying this, Jennifer went outside. Matthew regained consciousness and saw the sheriff. The sheriff, panicked, said, "Don't move." But Matthew unknowingly moved his hand. As the trigger was pulled, the bullet went through the sheriff and also pierced Matthew standing in front of him. Both of them fell dead right there. In the end, Jennifer is shown smiling with satisfaction after giving death to all her culprits. The camera slowly zooms out, and the story ends here. This was the full story of I Spit on Your Grave, the revenge of a woman who knows no bounds. If you liked our deep breakdown, please like and share the video and stay connected with Plot Dissected for more mind-blowing stories. Next time, we will dissect another story. Until then, remember,